Today we worked on the ZX7R tank that we're repainting for Luciano. We got the backmasking done from painting some of the trim colors. Actually, we're finished with the trim now, and it's time to paint the Kawasaki green color. And a couple of things about the Kawasaki green. Luciano had gotten a custom mixed batch that's matching the body work that he has. And I was surprised along the way here that the paint didn't cover any better than it did. That was expensive paint. And so that was the only disappointment of the day. The day ended, and that tank, a day or two from now under the heating vent, will be ready for some clear. This morning I haven't really made a total plan yet because it looks like it's going to rain, but it's not supposed to rain for a couple hours. So I think what I'll probably do today is the Luciano's ZX7R tank. Maybe get the green on it. I can get that done, get the backmasking off. One potential thing. If the rain goes out of the forecast or it gets less cloudy, maybe I can get a short ride. A nice ride on the RD sounds like something to be good today. But the point is, I get up every morning and I have to make decisions. It's like living in a harem. You know, you got to make decisions. Think about it. And I remember having a discussion with somebody about how important it is when you get to be my age, to stay busy. Stay busy, stay busy, stay busy. And these bikes, every one is a work in progress. Every one of them is a maintenance. There's always something, always something. And then the best news of all is you tend to hang out with people that have similar interests to you because they're always looking for, hey, you know, we need to do this, we need to swap parts, go to this, meet up. I think it's a wonderful way to spend your senior years. And maybe if you're 20 years old, it's a good way to spend your younger time too. And when you're 20, what's good? The girls still find you attractive. So this has dried up overnight. It looks like it dried up super nice, super smooth. There was a couple little spots on the other side, I think. I had to run a little sandpaper. Now, the thing that would be, it sits out in the garage overnight, so it's going to sit up by a heating vent now for an hour or so to warm up. Now, being warm, what it'll do, it'll help the tape, and I'll even use a hairdryer, help the tape come off without unnecessarily risking pulling up the paint. Because again, I don't know, Luciano primed this tank, not me, so I don't, now he knows about painting, I'm sure, but you never know. Old stuff and old people, it's not really the world champion combination there. But we'll do our best to get that green on today and then look around at the weather and see if the RD is talking to me. You know, and when I had the RD, the original, Luciano and I picked it up, and it really was, it needed a lot of work. Luciano helped me with the engine. We put pistons in this bike. I seized it up. Oh, we did all kinds of two-stroke rides with Mark Morgan, and oh my God, the days we had. I look back at it now, and I just think, wow, how much fun did I have with this bike? It's amazing. And I may have some fun today if the weather holds out. But every one of these bikes, anybody who has an interest in older motorcycles knows they each have a personality. They're like people. They each have their good points, their bad points. But the one thing they all are, they're all a lot of fun. So KARYN's brewing up coffee. It's still cold enough that the heating vents are pumping out heat regularly. And in about a half an hour, we'll be able to work on this. I'm going to bring it down to cellar now. Alright, now that's going to be under a heating vent for by the time I have my coffee and breakfast and everything and what I want to do. Then that'll be nice and warm and we'll be ready to take the tape off. And it's a really, really good tip. When you bring something in out of a cold garage, don't go ripping the tape off. Let it warm up. Boy, that's a tip worth its weight in gold. And if it does rain, well, tomorrow is going to rain too, they said. I want to get some... We'll see if I'm going to buff this out. I don't know, but it's so glossy now. I was thinking about not buffing it, but I always do that. It's terrible. And then I look at it, I could just make it a little bit shinier. Just like a fanatic. It's crazy. I'm addicted. How's everything in the bed and breakfast this morning? Everybody happy? Not much of that left. How many of these did we make? 7? Mm-hmm. Wow, these are good. The bed and breakfast has unlimited coffee. Unlimited. All day long. So the bed and breakfast moves on, and now we're under here Let's see if it's warm up to the touch a little bit. And that really is a good tip. And I had many model planes I'd put out in the garage. When I pull the paint, I didn't learn my lesson. Now, even after that, I'm going to hair dryer this when I pull the back masking. Hair dryer the tape. And I want to be real careful because I want to leave that stripe. That stripe doesn't come off. Just the back masking comes off, so I want to do it very delicately. And I've been thinking about things to do with this windshield. I talked to John Pothier yesterday. He had some ideas. KARYN has some ideas. It just never ends. I love having a project table. And it keeps you young. I really am not kidding about how good that came out. Now, that's that experimental paint that I mixed. And actually, Joe Padula and his wife Terry and KARYN and I had dinner last night. And I was explaining to him how I mixed this paint. And of course, he's watching a video and wondering, do I know what I'm doing? Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just lucky. Anyway, it's time. That part is warm enough. We're going to pull the back masking. Now, anybody that's ever done any real painting and knows the possibility of any tape under any conditions pulling up paint is always a little minefield you want to avoid. So the answer that I use is always stack the deck in your favor. Always etch the parts real good. Always let the paint dry thoroughly. And when you go to pull the tape up, the biggest single thing about tape is it gets stickier and stickier as it gets cold, and it gets easier and easier and safer to pull up any back masking you have when the tape is warm. Use the hairdryer liberally. And like almost everything in painting, patience is the biggest thing you have in your toolbox to work with. Is never try to rip the tape up and get it done in 5 minutes. Take a little extra time. Work neat and clean. Try not to look at the clock and say, oh, I have to have this done in 10 minutes or 20 minutes or something. And that's why I like to paint in the middle of the winter when it's pretty iffy if you're ever going to get it right. So I want to wipe off, make sure I don't have any fingerprints at all. A perfectly clean paper towel. I'm looking around now. One of the things I didn't realize, that the way this is going to play out with the back masking here, I probably could have done this a little more efficiently, but I wasn't thinking it through because we got so many things going on in the bed and breakfast here. It meant it just took me a little longer than it normally would, but in the end it all got done. And that's always the key with anything painting. If you're patient and you're willing to take the time to do it correctly, the right way, however you want to say it, what happens is in the end, you're always glad you did it. You're always glad you spent that little bit of extra time. And then at every step of the road, I like to look at it, move it, turn it from every angle, look at it, and make sure I didn't miss any of the steps. I didn't leave a spot exposed, or some of the tape is coming up. Patience. So this whole day was an unpredictable weather-wise, but it was sunny in the morning like this, and I wanted to make sure. See, this tank is an unusual shape for a tank. I needed to get the nose of the tank up so I can paint underneath there and do it conveniently and make it solid, that the tank didn't fall into KARYN's garden bins there or whatever. But anyway, this took a little time to get that nice and solid, and painting up underneath it like this, that was one of the critical things I wanted to do. I didn't want to skip any little spots that would be a problem. Now, I thought this paint was going to cover in, 1 or 2 coats. Not really. And that was the only downside of the whole day that I was a little disappointed in. But I wanted to show another trick, and this is something a lot of people might not do, and I don't know if they do or they don't do it. But I wanted to show this. This is in slow motion. I'm spraying the paint in midair. Now the paint is still coming out of the gun, and I'm putting it on the tank. Now what that does, if there's any little sputtering in the end of the gun, it eliminates it. Again, this is a tank. I thought for sure this would cover in 1 coat. I was shocked that it didn't. I really was surprised, but we managed to get enough paint on it. Now, moving it around, a little tricky. This is a wobbly tank when it's up on a paint table like this. I wanted to be careful, I'm always careful, but as you can imagine. Anyway, getting as much paint as I did put on this,
I always am of the opinion, and when you're putting this type of a color, and it should go on in 1.5 coats. First coat should be thin. Second coat should be, it covers. And third, if you put a third coat, it's overkill. Well, this required more than 3 coats. But it's Luciano's paint.
So it looks like this is going to need at least 3 coats to really get the color that we're looking for. I'm very surprised. This is expensive paint, and it doesn't cover as good as I was expecting, but we'll figure it out, that's for sure. And I've been just mixing it eyeball 50-50, which seems to be just fine. Mid-temp thinner, mid-temp. Come on, baby. I think we're going to have to get I'm glad he didn't have more fairings and stuff to put. I can imagine if you had fairings with this and a lot of parts, you'd need a quart, not a pint. Wow. I'm very surprised. Well, I tell it like it is, but this paint is not really good covering. And usually if it's cheap paint, you think, well, if you get the paint that's $30 a pint, this was $125, so I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. Just going to put more paint on the part.
Now, it is really a semi-translucent paint, but when it's done, you really don't see it on these videos. It really is a beautiful color, and it is a great match to the fairings.
And I'm trying to make some good time here because it looks like we're losing the day, and it was supposed to rain this afternoon, so no ride on the RD today. Would just be nice if we could finish this up today. I would really feel that would be, and get this in the garage drying. That'd be a good way to spend today.
Well, I put some extra coats on, and it did really deepen up the color at the very end. I'm sure the color at the end of this is going to be perfect. So, and the bottom line is that's all that matters when you put this back on a bike, that it's a relatively good. In fact, I think this is an excellent match. And Gavin's matched the paint, so I don't know. Dennis did a great job on some of the paint for me for the MT-09 and the FCR. This looks like it's going to be another good match.
Well, I was glad to get this sprayed because I think you can see coming in is the black clouds. Bye-bye sun. And it's looking like it's going to rain in 10-15 minutes. Karen yelled out, they're predicting rain, they're predicting rain. So it looks like maybe we beat the rain on this. Everything went pretty well. But you never know on a day like today, and it was a little chilly, and boy was that wind blowing. Wow. But we got the job done. So Luciano, I was very happy to get this done today before it rained. It started out looking like I'd even sneak a ride in today. Not happening. In fact, it looks like it's really going to rain any minute now. See, luckily while I'm doing this kind of work, Karen keeps the Weather Channel on in the case they change things. And the thing is, they change it every half an hour. So that doesn't matter. We got the job done. And it was very funny. This is a funny thing. I thought I'd mention this. While I was talking, Joe Padula and I and Terry and Karen, we were talking last night over a nice Italian dinner. And he mentioned, he says, oh, you were out there painting in the wind and the rain and snow and birds are flying by. And he says, and he used to run a car dealership, and they had a body shop. And they worked under totally controlled conditions with heat and air conditioning and $1,000 spray guns and everything. And they had problems. They had fish eyes. They had things there, little defects in the paint. So maybe they should have hired me. Maybe. Anyway, Luciano's a smart guy. He hired me. Well, another couple of days and that wheel will be back on here. And if the weather's appropriate, we'll get a photo shoot and share it with everybody. And I always think it's pretty funny, and I'm not being sarcastic. People think if they buy expensive equipment, they'll be a better painter. I'm not sure about that. I know I don't really need the expensive equipment. I've managed to get by with some pretty inexpensive stuff, and I think some of this work, you can figure it out if it works. But the bottom line is we love to share all we learn, and Turbo Steve shared a great tip that I think I'm going to try. He said one of his friends in Pennsylvania, he didn't mention a name, before he paints a wheel, he runs a torch over it to dry up the moisture so the paint sticks better. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I used to do it, or I still do it. I leave the leave the wheel under the heating vent, maybe that does the same thing. Dries up the moisture. And the only downside today is we didn't get to ride. But you know what? Spring is coming. Michelle is so right in saying, the last time I got a text from her, don't worry, spring is coming. And now it's back to our bed and breakfast. And knowing that this is in the bank, it's going to dry up here overnight. I'm going to be sleeping well tonight. But of course, everything we do is slaves of the weather, slaves of the paint. Oh man, I can't wait to, well, another day under this heating vent. And I've come up with a formula that seems to work for me, and really, I think it's working exceptional. I don't know if it would work for other people as well. I've shared it on this series of tapes. And I know in the next couple of days we're supposed to get some really heavy rain and some bad weather. But if that's the case, see what happens when I know I can't paint, I can't do anything, I work on another project. And then I can work on that. And then if they're both drying and the weather's okay, it's above 40, I try to get a ride. Today it didn't work out. So today we had a great day getting that stuff painted for Luciano, but there was only one problem in this whole day. I didn't get the ride. But it's never really a problem because down in my shop, we can always go over to the computer and dial up any day. I've taken pictures for so many years and so many pictures and pictures that other people have taken. And I think some of these come from Joe Roselli. I'm not sure. But this is just a day that'll live in infamy. Now, Charlie brought his classic MV Augusta, and that is some super bike. I have looked at that bike, and it is really nicely made. Cast engine parts, gear, cam drive. Joe had his old Brutale. I got to ride the Brutale, I don't think this day, but that was quite a nice bike. And the MV Augusta, of course. What was cool about the old bike is riding behind it. We went on a ride, and this is probably today. And I remember riding behind it and the sound of the 4 exhaust pipes. And I'm not sure how much baffling is in those pipes, and this was during a time that I had this is the yellow FZR when it was a red Ferrari bike. So it was funny that most of the bikes on this ride were red. I don't know how that played out, but I wound up doing a thing I usually do, working on my photography skills. Hey, look at this Desmo Sedici with the exhaust coming out the top of the seat. There was a lot of cool stuff happening. And I love it this time of year. Everything's green and pretty and everything, but you know, I love to take pictures in the fall and in various places. Look at the back wheel on this bike. That's what inspired these silver wheels. And I had polished the wheels on the FZR at this point. They were polished aluminum. And if you want to see a labor of love, do me a favor, go polish up a set of wheels. And most of it by hand, too. So anyway, we did go, and the usual things. We stopped at Perkins. We stopped along the way to do photo shoots. We ran into some people we knew. And just looking at other bikes and stopping at some of the lakes all along the park. Anybody's never been to this area, we have this beautiful park that we can ride through. It has many, many miles of beautiful, beautiful roads. Now, it's not really that beautiful now as it used to be, because basically from COVID, all the people from New York City come out here and camp along the side of the roads. But it's still a nice place to ride. And if you can go during the week when there isn't a lot of traffic. And I'm looking back, this is 2013. It's in the fall, so there must be some pictures in here that are really nice. I think, in fact, they're all nice. But I always like to take pictures of other people, too. The other bikes that are around, the other people. Because, and a good example is, here's a bike, I don't know, this is a bike I always liked. And I rode Luciano's version of that bike. One day we had the GS and we switched bikes. And I love to see now that all the things like this, that the leaves are changing. Charlie's MV, the classic. All of the stuff. Here we are in the middle of a day. It's getting ready to rain outside, and I'm kind of depressed that I'm not going to get the ride today. But I could sit here by the computer, got me a big cup of coffee. Oh, look at that. Look at those exhaust pipes. They're curved. And I could not figure out how they made those pipes. Now, I've made a lot of exhaust pipes in my life for model planes, and when you have to put a bend in them, boy, that gets tricky. They were really nicely made. That was some beautiful work of art. Now, of course, the nice thing, when we used to go to the top of Perkins by the lookout, the photos looking down at the hills and the mountains and
sometimes I look back at these pictures, and it's a cold, rainy day, and it warms my heart up to know that this actually was one day in my life. I got to live this day. I got to live it in real time with Luciano and Charlie and Joe and probably all the people up on top of Perkins. I got to shoot pictures. I got to shoot some video. It was a day that I got to live. But that's not the end of it, because I bothered to take these pictures. I bothered to shoot video this day. There's probably an exact video of this day somewhere out on YouTube. I have to look for it. But I get to live it over and over and over again. There's the Bear Mountain Bridge right there. And looking at the bike when it was a Ferrari bike, now it's the FZR. And we have these car things where the cars go by with these expensive cars and rev the engines up. We have been lucky enough to have, when we had the A-Team, and we used to have these rides every weekend. For 9 months of the year we had this. And it's just a memory that I treasure. I treasure every one of these pictures, whether it's summer, winter, fall, and all of the memories of the bikes that I basically have them, but I don't really have them. And the work I'm doing right now, I have a lot of memories of those days. Look at that nasty face. I think it's really time, Wendy, it's time for a facelift. And every time I look back like I did today, I think of how lucky I am to have assembled this very humble bike collection. I really don't have a lot of money tied up in these bikes, but I've got a million hours beyond hours. And every one of them is a unique, different ride experience, different amount of fun, different. Some have been to three of them have been to the track. Some I'm afraid to take them to the track. I don't want to scratch them. I've restored them, I've painted them, I've massaged them, and especially this MT-09 that I'm desperately in love with. It's the love of my life here, except for KARYN. But I enjoy sharing it on YouTube. So if you enjoyed the video, I hope you share it with your friends. And of course, I hope, most of all, that we'll see you tomorrow. And thanks again for watching.